Welcome to the Voice of Podcast program produced by Center for East Turkistan National Interest. Hello, everyone. I am Rukia Tukdush, and welcome back to the show. Today, we have an absolutely remarkable guest with us, Alexandria. She's a photographer and adventurer and a storyteller who uses her camera to highlight the powerful experience of Uyghur women. Her work brings forward stories of courage, resilience, and hope. And it all began with the jaw-dropping 15,000-mile solo bicycle journey across China, East Turkestan, Tibet, and Central Asia. You are going to be inspired and completely captivated with her story today. So try let's jump right in. Welcome, Alexandria. It's such a pleasure for me to interview you. So, when did you visit East Turkestan? How long you stayed there?
The first visit was in 2011. What had brought me there was my first trip to Shanghai in 2007, and I went to a Uyghur restaurant, and I asked the people I was there with, I was like, "Who are these people? Like, they're fascinating, different language, different looks, different food." And they were like, "Oh, they're Uyghurs," and they started telling me the history, and, like, it was just, like, I became obsessed. Um, so I started doing research, and then eventually I moved to Shanghai in 2008. I was struggling, living there abroad for the first time, and I got really depressed. Long story short, I decided I was gonna ride my bicycle from Shanghai west. And my goal was to get to Kashgar. That was the only goal. No route, no plans. Just I was going to ride my bike to Kashgar to see this place and meet these people that just had this rich history and culture that fascinated me. Um, so the first time was in 2010. I rode my bicycle around East Turkestan for a few months. I stayed in Urumqi for a few months during that winter. I think in 2010 to tw it was 2011 to 2012, I probably totaled about 6 to 8 months in East Turkestan, because I'd gone into Kyrgyzstan and then I would exit and come back into East Turkestan where I would stay in, Awat for a few months with a family I had met, along with Kashgar. I had been to Hotan a couple of times, even a small little road that runs parallel south of Hotan that skirts along the Quinshan mountain range that separates East Turkestan from Tibet. So I was along that road.
Mhm.
Um, so that kind of gives you a timeline. And then I would continue to revisit until about 2017 when it became too dangerous for me and mostly too dangerous for the people I was staying with.
So, you revisited again in 2017, right?
2011, 2012, I think 2014, 2015. So I would continue making consecutive visits up until
What,
2017.
what, which year was the last visit?
2017.
Okay. So, at that time, actually, China started genocide in 2014, right? And they rapidly intensified in 2017. And that you were there at that time, and that you must visit. And how was the political situation at that time? Could you briefly describe?
In 2017 or earlier?
No, it's 27. Earlier too, it's since that China invaded East Turkestan, since 1949,
Mhm.
oppression exists there, and people never get relaxed. But uh, starting 2014, they start genocide. In 2017, uh, it was intensified. The genocide was rapidly intensified, right? So, could you describe how was the situation in 2017? Because we know that people are terrorized over there because of genocide policies of China. But for you as a photojournalist, how scary and how unsafe to be there?
Well, leading up to 2017, I had noticed tremendous changes in my ability to be welcome there. I will say that when I was there, I was able to move around a little bit more freely because people thought I was Uyghur, or a lot of times they asked if I was Uzbek. Even
Mm.
though I'm tall, I would cover my head. I would wear local clothing. I would go out with my friends and go to the market and wear local clothing. I would dress modestly, and my Chinese was broken enough that people would just assume I was Uyghur because maybe I spoke Uyghur as my native tongue, but Chinese was my second language. So I was able to move around a little bit more freely. But in 2017, it was getting to the point where there were roadblocks, and I would be pulled out of cars with friends, and they would ask for IDs. They would see my US passport, and then I would end up having to dump my bag out in the road for them to go through everything. Eventually, like, there were sometimes I threw attitude, and I would pack my bag accordingly to have, like, my underwear on the top and be like, "I can't believe you're doing this to me. Look at what I have in my bag." Like, to these, they were actually sometimes Chinese and Uyghur officers. So they would go through my bags. I would have tools with me because I was traveling, like a knife or like a multi-tool, and I was not allowed to have those. Um, so everything was stripped of me. Um, I would register at the local police station because I was staying in the countryside, and the family that I was staying with obeyed rules. And they were
Mm.
like, well, let's take you to the local precinct and register you. And they would actually remember me. They'd be like, oh, I remember you from last year. So the last time I was there in 2017, they registered me at the police station, and I was staying with a Uyghur family in the countryside, a very remote area. And one of the Chinese Han neighbors came over and they saw me. And within 20 minutes later, there was another Chinese man that showed up with riot gear. And they were like, we heard you have a foreigner in your house. And my friends were like, she's registered at the police station. Like, you can go check. You're not allowed to have foreigners in your house. What are you doing? And they're like, she's our friend. She's here for a wedding. So it was getting to the point where it was just causing a lot of problems. I had visited in 2016 with a French friend that had a full beard, like a very full beard, and he kept getting harassed because he had a full beard. As we know, like, men are supposed to shave. So that, like, they'd be like, are you Muslim? Do you practice Islam? Like, why do you have this beard? Um, so 2017 was getting um very intense. There was a time, do you want me to continue with the story?
Yeah, you can talk.
um I had
Sure.
a female friend. She was probably in her mid 30s with two daughters. The first time I had met her in 2011, she was there with her husband. When I would revisit in 2013, he was incarcerated. She told me that he was incarcerated for praying at a mosque. So we went for a walk in 2017. She's like, I'm going to show you where he is. And I want to talk to you because I had written in my Chinese wasn't that good, but I had written in a note in my phone and showed it to her privately that said, this is who I am. This is what I know. This is what I understand. And I support you. And I know the truth. And so it kind of opened up a dialogue with us. And so she's like, I want to take you for a walk. I want to show you something. So we walked around an open air encampment, and she said,
That's
my husband's in there. She's like, with many other people. And she told me that her worst fear in life were if they came and took her children. And she's like, they will put them in a home and they will be put with Chinese people. And she told me that was her worst fear ever. So she also had family members that lived in an apartment building that went right next to the open air encampment. So the open air encampment's like this with the blue wall around it. And there's about a 25 floor apartment building. We have to go through a checkpoint and show IDs. But she was smart. She was savvy. Like, she was fiery. And so she got me through. Um, but something happened when we were up in the apartment building, because if we had been on the other side of the apartment building, we would have been able to see into the encampment. So I wasn't able to see, But we were in this, like, I think it was 16th, 17th floor. They get a phone call. You have to leave. We know there's a foreigner with you. You have to leave. You exit right now. So I was like, okay. And I had my camera in a side bag with me. And so what I did is I put a flap, I covered my camera. So if they opened my bag, it wouldn't be immediate that I had a camera. And I had hidden I think I'd put my passport so I could easily reach my passport without exposing anything else. So she's like, we have to leave. And so when we were exiting, they start just like, what are you doing? Who is she? Where are you going? Who are you seeing? And she just starts shouting at them. And I'm like, I don't want to say her name, but I'm like, oh my goodness, you are fierce. Like, she was not going to back down. I'm like, are we going to get arrested? And it's just like, she is like a hero by all ways to me. Like, she just would not back down. So I showed my passport and we like moved on, but I just don't, I think that if I hadn't been with her, with a woman that was just so like, I'm just going to fight this, I don't think, like, it may have not ended up in a completely different situation.
Okay.
So those are some of the stories.
Oh, that's horrible. And the woman was fearless, and that's amazing because I think a lot of people struggle and fight against the Chinese police, Chinese forces, and Chinese authority over there. Um, because people has nothing to lose, nothing to lose. So they they know that they will end up in a horrible situation, but they still are fighting against. I want to ask you, could you tell us about your journey in East Turkestan a little bit more, especially about Uyghur women? What do you want to tell us about them? What did you find about Uyghur women?
So my initial, being an American, being a young 20 something when September 11th happened, um, I think a lot of Westerners are indoctrinated into this idea of what Islam is and what Muslims, like, who people are. Fortunately, I lived in New York City before going to China, and I was exposed to diverse cultures. So I think that that narrow-mindedness that a lot of us have kind of was dissipating, and then, you know, being an American, people would be like, "Aren't you afraid of going to a Muslim place?" And I'm like, I don't,
I got,
I mean,
okay.
compared to America where everybody's running around with guns, I don't know what I should be afraid of. Let me know what I should be afraid of. Um, so it was a real curiosity because I'm just the type of person that's like, oh, you're going to tell me these people are bad? Well, let me figure that out for myself. I want to know what's so bad about them. So my first so when I went into East Turkestan, I had already been to Tibet for an extensive amount of time, and women there just, it just like, I just started seeing what like real womanhood was all about, this like fearlessness and this like bravery. But in East Turkestan, I, like you said, they had nothing to lose. Like, Uyghur women, they would invite me in those private dance parties, while drinking chai and watermelon and eating watermelon. I was just welcomed in as like a sister, an auntie, a friend. The whole like concept of family just really like changed with me. And also using your voice. Like, I keep wanting to say this woman's name that I spent time with the two daughters, but she taught me so much. She would dress so classy and beautiful, but yet she would do anything for her daughters and like still like work. It was just like this all encompassing of like the most purest of womanhood, and like the faith and the prayers and the commitment to family and the commitment to work. And like, I remember like Americans being like, oh, we need to liberate these Muslim women. I'm like, what are you what are you talking about? Like, these women can think for themselves. They want to work, they want to take care of their family, they want to dress in beautiful clothing. Like, and liberation, if you want to cover your whole body in black, that's liberation. If you wanna wear a beautiful red dress and pantyhose and makeup, that's liberation too. Like, we are
Wow.
not here to tell women how they should dress. So, like, I feel like being in East Turkestan, it was just such a beautiful variety of, like, women and what they stand for and fighting for what they believe. And even the media, like, when I look at photographs of uprisings in East Turkestan, it's usually the women that are at the front lines. And I mean, I think a lot had to do with that men were disappearing first, but like, I just don't, it's just a beautiful, like, rich, empowering, it's very inspiring.
I think each photo has incredible story. What kind of story you want to tell to the people, women in restaurants in that you photographed? You called Legend of Nizugon. This photo,
Yeah,
right? What did,
yeah.
why did you give that name? Legend.
Well, the Uyghur fable of Legend of Nuzagum, which I've read a few times and I revisit over and over again, um, about the young Uyghur woman that was forced to marry a Han man and took his life in revenge. I just think it's just another one of those stories of a woman just not backing down and being true to herself and her beliefs. And like this woman in this red dress, we have this idea of Muslim women just all modest and covering themselves, and here's this beautiful, vibrant young woman. And I think it represents hope. I think it represents liberation. I think it represents individuality, and I think it just represents like being true to your beliefs. And if that's what Islam and being Uyghur is about, then bravo. Which brings me back to a story when I was first in Kashgar. This Uyghur woman, she was very modest, covered her face, wore black out. She's like, "Let me ask you something about Western women." She's like, "Why do you wear all this makeup and like make yourselves beautiful and like cover your true beauty to go out in public?" She's like, "We would never do that. We only share our beauty for those who really care about us." And I just was like, wow, that's some like very insightful ways to see about like how we choose to show ourselves to the world. And I mean, I respect that as well. Like the freedom to portray yourself or represent your faith however you see fit.
And I saw the photographs that you took in East Turkestan. You captured one photograph in bazaar, woman selling Zhou Enlai and Mao Zedong's photo in her shop, right? I think if these Uyghurs were not forced hanging these photos on the wall, they're not going to sell because who's going to buy these photos, right? I remember when I was grade one, we have Mao Zedong's photo in the classroom. And when I was in Gulja in East Turkestan, and it was mandatory for schools and the peoples to hang these photos, Mao Zedong's photos and Marx's photos in their home and the schools, I think, at that time. So I am surprised that still they are forced to hang these photos right now, and especially Zhou Enlai's photos and Mao Zedong's photos. And did you see in Uyghur homes that they hang these photos still? And are they also forced to hang Xi Jinping's photo too? Or they have Xi Jinping's photo in their home? Did you see?
Yeah, I noticed an increase. I noticed an increase in East Turkestan and in Tibet. Um, and like even in Tibet with removing pictures of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Like when I first went there in 2011, I would find more photos. As the years progressed, the photos decreased. And I noticed that in East Turkestan too, especially the Chinese flags being held on, like flown on top of houses. I know it was becoming mandatory to at least because my last trip to Tibet was in 2020, so I had noticed it there too, that police officers would come through villages and give everybody a Chinese flag, and you had to put it on the top of your house and fly it.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that was going on in East Turkestan too, because I noticed an increase. I remember being in a roomchi around Chinese New Year in 20 Oh, I came through East Turkistan in 2018. It was a brief visit because I was coming back from Kyrgyzstan. That was a very brief visit. That was the last time. There were tanks everywhere, and I remember Urumqi being just plastered in Chinese New Year decorations. I was like, this was not like this like a decade ago. Um, so things definitely changed with like yeah, the CCP, and then the cards being put on homes, it would be like the owners' names and how many residents, and it was all written in Chinese. I noticed that in Tibet as well, like the just a placard on every home, and it usually had a photo on it as well.
Hmm. You also have the photo about the Uyghur woman, the farmer woman praying. How did you get that photo and when it was? I believe that we're not allowed to pray since 2014. And you have other photos, Kashgar wedding and the woman making dua in her wedding too. And right now in East Turkestan, people cannot say Assalamu alaikum each other, even with the name of God, greetings each other. It was not allowed. This religion in Islam is completely banned in East Turkestan. So when did you get these photos? It was
The woman praying was in 2011, and
mhm,
the wedding was in 2017.
2017.
Um, Unfortunately, the young man in that wedding in 2017, I'm still friends with his cousin who is living in Europe, and he did some research and we can't find him. So we believe, and so sometimes I wonder if it was my fault, but I remember us talking, and when we would get pulled over by the police or whatever, he'd be like, "Don't worry, those are for the bad people." I was like, "There's bad people here?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, that's why the police are here." And I just remember thinking, like, they're coming for them, but they're gonna come for you someday too. And so, yeah.
And that's definitely not your fault because China has intention, a specific genocidal intention to eradicate Uyghurs in East Turkestan because East Turkestan does not belong to them, and they want to completely control and they make East Turkestan's total leverage for China's geostrategy and geopolitics. So that's why they want to eradicate these people because they know these people are real owners of East Turkestan, the China, and the China is not. China is colonizer. That's why they have intention. They are just taking people and they just one by one and secretly killing. Millions of people were arrested, forcibly disappeared, killed. And no matter you were there or not, they going to kill these Uyghurs. They gonna arrest them, detain them, and execute them. So it's happening since they were invaded to Turkestan. So it's nothing to do with you. You don't
Yeah,
have
and
to.
this young man just he obeyed the rules. He he did not pray. He smoked cigarettes in public.
Doesn't
He would
matter.
drink, and it's like I just remember thinking like I don't think this is going to protect you. And that was like the market photo, that woman with the embroideries of Mao Zedong. It's like it's people trying to say, "Look, I'm okay. I'm playing along. I'm one of you." But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I remember the young man that's missing, his sister. I remember her telling me in the field, she was like, "My best friend is gone." And she's like, because he had something on his phone and it wasn't even like anything, it wasn't even a big deal. It was just, and she's, I have a photo of her sleeping under this blanket. Her parents made blankets in central area of East Turkestan, and she slept under that blanket, and she told me she thinks about him every night because they just came for him, and I think he was like 16 or 17, and she would spend her years in boarding school in Shanghai. So
Mhm.
the I don't know how they understood that they could talk to me about this stuff. I don't know if they understood that I would share these stories eventually, but I think they understood that I was a foreigner and that I would share eventually. I could stay quiet, but I can't because that's just not right. Um, so yeah, it's just you're right. They just and my WeChat is silent. either people have disconnected from me, or and I don't reach out to people anymore. It's like, if you want to reach out to me on WeChat, you can, but I don't want to cause any problems.
Yeah, because doesn't matter. This religion is the excuse. We're not killed by China, the Uyghurs were not, and other Turkic people detained, massively detained and killed by China, not because we are only Muslim. That's one of our identity. They want to destroy the Uyghurs just because we are Uyghur and we are Turkic people and we are different than the Chinese. That's why they are killing and detaining. Doesn't matter even they don't show that they practicing Islam, and they saying that, oh, I am one of them, like you say that I'm like a Chinese, I don't practice Islam and my identity like a Chinese, and I I am loyal to Chinese Communist Party. Doesn't matter. They still arrest them. They still gonna kill them because they know that you are a different race, different group, and different person. So unless you become totally assimilated and become completely one of the Chinese that they cannot differentiate at all, maybe you can survive. Otherwise, they're gonna kill all of them because we are different than them. That's why. And so it doesn't matter even what, no matter how the woman, like you say, that showing the loyalty and put everyone as Mao Zedong's picture or Xi Jinping's picture. Doesn't matter. They're gonna come after to them, and now they say that China is just maybe a little bit relaxed the policies right now, but it's not true. They secretly starting arresting people again. They still keep detaining the people. They don't want to draw world attention. That's why they do very secretly, slowly, just partially destroy the people, then come back after another part of them, then come back up for the another part. So they're doing this. I want to ask you that. How do you handle the situation where when you are taking a photo might invade someone's privacy or dignity, those kinds of things, because maybe they don't want to they don't want to be photographed and they were scared, like sometimes kind of situation.
Usually, usually I just feel out the situation. You know, so personally, before I photograph people, I just spend a lot of time with them. And, I want to become their friend, and actually, have them know that I care and I want to participate in their lives. And then photography usually happens later. Um, I usually I usually can tell, being in East Turkistan, if there were police officers around. I just didn't. There was one time I was at the train station. I think it was either in Urumqi or Kashgar, and I put my camera up just to take a picture of the train station. Oh my goodness, the police officer was just like in my face screaming at me, and I'm like, okay, I won't do that again.
Mhm.
So for me, it's just kind of feeling it out. Also, I'm not there to I'm there to take photographs, but I'm also there to learn. Like, I have countless stories, countless, and not that if I go through my archives, I don't have as many photos as I would like, because I would just put down the camera and like talk to this young woman in their family's field while we're eating peaches and just taking in these stories, because for me, listening to them and retelling their stories is probably going to be more beneficial and safer and have more impact if I can share their stories of what they've told me, rather than a brief, like, fleeting moment of just, my perception through the camera. So I would say probably most of the knowledge and information and experiences I have probably haven't even been photographed. Like, I was thinking about one of the moments that had the biggest impact on me was in 2012 November. I had finished my bicycle tour across Asia. I was on a bus from, I think it was a town between Urumqi and Kashgar. I was going to a bus to get on a train station, and we got off for a rest. And these Han teenagers started pointing and talking about the dirty Uyghur girl on the bus. And they were talking about me. And I just remember thinking, and they were speaking in Chinese. I remember thinking, One, you don't know me. Two, I'm not Uyghur. And three, that is the most bigoted, racist, hateful speech I have ever heard about a general, broad, sweeping assumption about a race. Like, and I just remember thinking, just my blood boiling and just thinking, yeah, uh, I'm gonna fight this. um, so like it's one thing to experience racism, and it's like another experience racism for a race that you aren't even. And that reminds me, like a couple months later, I was sitting in front of the mosque in Kashgar waiting to go out to the countryside, and this bus of Chinese Han photographers jumped out of the bus. It's sunrise, and they just come rushing over to me, sticking these big lenses in my face, photographing me. Oh, look at this Uyghur girl, blah 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 blah. And
Oh my,
I can understand everything. And as a photographer, I'm just like, wow, this is offensive. And so I start shouting at them in Chinese, you stupid men. I'm not Uyghur. I'm American. And they were like, and they were like, but you speak Chinese and you look Uyghur, but you're American. And then they wanted to talk to me. And I was just so angry and so like, just like, get out of my face. Like, don't talk to me. You don't treat people this way, you know? And I was just like, I was like a zoo animal for them. And I was just like, this is so gross. And so now, like, when I see media coming out of East Turkistan of like, Uyghur women dancing and their full like outfits, and I'm like, I wonder who's producing this. Like, it's this whole like voyeuristic, like
exactly.
colonialist attitude about these people that are just trying to survive.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine how to survive being Uyghur woman around these Chinese, and especially that they violating their privacy, whatever they want. You know, they sleeping in the Uyghur woman's home. That was the Chinese policy too, and that was they appointing Han Chinese males sleep Uyghur woman's home every month. It still exists right now. And these Uyghur families, many of the families that male household was already arrested, but these male Han Chinese has to come to sleep in their home with these women and the children. It's a gross violation of privacy that they were forced to marry with Han Chinese, and any kind of Han Chinese, but you have experience that they can take your photo, or they can do whatever they want, and it's very hard. It's unbelievable. I don't know what to say. It's being Uyghur woman and living over there is extremely, extremely difficult. I'm really angry when I think about that.
It's I mean, it's I understand. It's and like I always recognize my privilege of being able to just get up and leave or like wave my US passport around and be like, "Yeah, I'm safe." But yeah, that was like a time in 27. What's that?
Yeah, these Uyghur women can't go anywhere, they're stuck.
No.
Yeah.
And everybody's tracked and monitored. And that was the thing in 2017 too. Like going into a bazaar, we had to have our IDs scanned. And luckily, I had a Chinese work permit. And so I would show that, and that would usually get me through. They'd be like, oh, okay, you live here. It's not too big of a deal. But like if I had shown my US passport, it would have like probably caused a lot more problems. But I'm pretty sure now with scanning, of IDs, it probably wouldn't even go through. And then that was like the whole thing with gasoline, and like you had to have a driver's license. Like I saw so much change in a matter of like 5 to 7 years. It was unbelievable, the changes and the restrictions that happened.
Yeah. When do you document a community or events? I think you participated Uyghur wedding and some community events over there. What steps do you take to make sure the story reflects their perspective, those Uyghur people's perspective, rather than just your own? For example, in your view, what does it mean for image to truly give voice to those people or someone rather than just describe them or depict them?
Oh, wow. Um, well, when I'm behind my camera, I try to like be as anonymous, and like I just try to see myself as a vessel for carrying a message. Um I don't know if that's the best way to go about it, but I look at people with I just try to think about how I would feel. 'Cause like sharing some of those stories I've shared with you, I've been on the other side of the lens. And I mean, I had some instances in Tibet that changed me in a way, like, I will never ever allow somebody to feel that way. Like, just like as a object to be photographed. I usually know people. I usually know their names. I'm part of the crowd, and then like other photographs, if I can't get firsthand opinions from East Turkistan. I am so fortunate to have such a wonderful like community among the diaspora of Uyghurs in North America and even in Australia. And if I have questions or concerns or anything like this, I will send photos to other people and be like, "Can you give me an idea of what this means or what this represents or how do you feel about it? Do you think I should share this photo? This is how I see it. What do you see about it?" So I constantly am having dialogues with Uyghurs about an image or its context or what it represents. Um, and there's photos I choose not to share, and there's photos that I choose to share. So I guess just trying to be part of the community and understand, like trying to learn and understand. Like I see my camera as a way to access my understanding and learning about people.
I saw all of your photographs and that was amazing work, the work you did. What role do you think photojournalism plays in shaping public opinion or driving social change today, especially for those Uyghur women?
I think it affects a lot. I think what we're seeing in Gaza has really, really changed people's awareness of what's going on in the world. Like, for instance, the last couple of years with Gaza, people will start posting things about genocide and like slave labor for some of these fast fashion industries. And I will write to them and be like, if you're wearing cotton from China, more than likely it's been made from Uyghur slave labor. So if you're behind supporting Palestinians in Gaza, like you need to know about what's going on in other parts of the world as well. So I think imagery has brought an awareness to people, and then you can start allowing other people, like people, to become more aware of what's going on. Unfortunately, I feel like we are so overloaded with media right now, and now we have AI coming in, and so I think photojournalism plays a very important role, but I also believe that visual literacy plays a very important role. And that's visual literacy is when you look at an image, like who, what, when, where, why, how. Like, is
Mhm.
this been altered? Who took the photograph? Like, it infuriates me when I look at captions of like intimate women collecting, like whether it's in a nomad's tent or whether it's in a mud packed home, and it's a very intimate photograph of women and family, and I look at the photographer's name, I'm like, it's a man, really? Like, it's a like, for me as a woman, I know for a fact a man in a woman's space is going to change the situation no matter what. And that photographer might have a fixer, might have a translator. They might be women, they might be men. So, like, for visual literacy, for me, I think of like, well, who's taking this photograph? Who's paying for this photographer? Like, what are they trying to say? Are they pro this? Are they pro that? Like, um, is this a Han Chinese photographer? Like, there's a Han Chinese photographer that keeps doing very beautiful photos out in Tibet, and my Tibetan friends love his photographs. I'm like, you
Yeah.
do realize he's Han Chinese. Like, you do realize this is a biased view of this fairy land of Tibet where the Tibetans just roam the plateau freely. So when I talk about visual literacy, looking at who's photographing it,
Correct.
looking at who's paying for it. Is it a low key advertisement for a brand, which is becoming more and more popular? So for photojournalism and media, I think it's so important, but I think it's also important to question where this is coming from, who's been paying for it. You never know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Thank you very much, Alexandria. It's a very fascinating discussion. Anyone who watching this channel, please subscribe. by pressing the button below to learn more about Uyghurs and support their voices against China's genocide. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional because Alexandria, she's a real witness and she saw with her own eyes how Uyghur women and other Uyghurs going through over there. And thank you very much for joining us. Take care.